Oh, wow. Beautiful shot of the Statue of Liberty at 22 past the hour. And a new book is taking a timely look at how the current debate raging in the U.S. over how to balance liberty and power all stems from a key ideological battle at the dawn of the nation between Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton. The president and the CEO of the National Constitution Center, Jeffrey Rosen, joins us now with his new book entitled The Pursuit of Liberty, How Hamilton versus Jefferson Ignited the Lasting Battle Over Power in America. Tell us about the book. Congratulations. Tell us about this battle and why you wrote this book.
Thank you so much. I wrote it because the battle between Hamilton and Jefferson about national power versus states' rights, and a strong executive versus a strong Supreme Court, and liberal versus strict construction of the Constitution has defined all of American history. Hamilton and Jefferson clashed about whether a Julius Caesar would subvert American democracy and consolidate all power in his own hands. And today we're having a debate in this country about whether President Trump is Julius Caesar, the founder's greatest fears, or whether he's Andrew Jackson, a kind of populist who's trying to channelist resentment against elites. Studying the history can teach us so much about our current challenges. It suggests we've been through very tough times before, but it's really important for citizens to learn about history so they can preserve liberty and keep American democracy.
Jeffrey, good morning. For some Americans, this comes down to a rap battle between Lin-Manuel Miranda and Daveed Diggs in Hamilton. We get the essence of this argument. But as you say, it is kind of the foundation for so many of the arguments in our country, the debates about how things should operate within the Constitution that have come since, including for Abraham Lincoln and slavery. So what is the fundamental debate that these two men were having?
You're so right about Lin-Manuel Miranda. We just gave the Liberty Medal at the Constitution Center last week to Ron Chernow and the Hamilton musical. Kids performed from the musical. They were inspired by it. And that musical has done so much to just get kids and learners of all ages to love history. It was so meaningful to do that. The basic battle was between liberty and power. Jefferson thinks that every expansion in power threatens liberty, and Hamilton thinks that some expansions of power can secure liberty, that you need a strong federal government to regulate the economy, to create a national bank, to create national security. And that's defined the conflict between our political parties throughout history. It defined the conflict over slavery before the Civil War. And it's defined all of the battles on the Supreme Court. And it's really interesting as we're debating the scope of executive power today. You know, just next week, the court's going to hear the challenge to President Trump's tariffs. The question of whether the court should enforce limits on executive power or whether the president has become a kind of elected emperor goes back to the beginning.
Jeffrey, could you talk for a bit about the prescience of these two men, Hamilton and Jefferson, especially Hamilton, and things that he wrote, things that he espoused, things that he championed, and compare them to the visionaries that they are, but what they said then is so applicable to many of the things that are going on right now in this country.
You're so right. You really feel like you're reading a crystal ball when you read Hamilton and the Federalist Papers, which must be the greatest American defense of the Constitution ever. And Hamilton begins by saying, this is a test, this experiment, about whether people can govern themselves by reason and conviction rather than force or violence. And he's not sure whether it will succeed. And all previous democracies have fallen and given their ways to dictators and tyrants. And Hamilton says the only way we can keep the republic is if citizens are ruled by reason rather than passion. They don't succumb to their nastiest impulses to own the libs and own the conservatives, but instead engage in reasoned deliberation and learn how to disagree without being disagreeable. It's a sober warning, but he's cautiously optimistic that if we can just study history and listen to each other, we can actually keep the republic.
Jeffrey, congrats on the book. Obviously, it comes ahead of the 250th anniversary next summer. You know, the current president has made clear he wants to put his imprint on that moment here. And it's more than that. It seems that he is trying to rewrite some of the nation's history, not just the exhibits in the Smithsonian, but in our national parks. Signs are coming down, Confederate statues going back up. What is your concern here about the way this administration is trying to, frankly, change the way we all look back upon our past, a past that's certainly painful at times, but so necessary to get us to where we are now?
Well, it is crucially important to study history. It's striking that President Trump in 2020 said he ran for president against Joe Biden to prevent Democrats from tearing down statues of Thomas Jefferson. And he stood in front of Mount Rushmore and said we have to preserve our history and prevent statues from being taken down. The truth is that it's really important to study history honestly in all of its complexities. We have nothing to fear from recognizing that these passionate battles over how to balance liberty, equality, and government by consent, the big ideas of the Declaration, go back to the beginning. People fought duels. Hamilton died because he was defending liberty against Aaron Burr. But it is very important to study it honestly and not to try to whitewash it. So that's why ultimately keeping the debate between Hamilton and Jefferson is so crucial. It's really striking that after Hamilton dies in the duel, Jefferson places a bust of him across from his own bust in the Central Entrance Hall in Monticello. You can see it there today. You got to go there and check it out. And Jefferson would pass the bust and he would smile faintly and say, opposed in life as in death. And that incredibly moving statement that Jefferson views Hamilton not as a hated enemy to be destroyed or tear down, but a respected opponent to be engaged in is urgently important. We've just got to get that back if we're going to keep this democracy going.
Totally agree. The new book, available now, is entitled The Pursuit of Liberty: How Hamilton versus Jefferson Ignited the Lasting Battle Over Power in America. President and CEO of the National Constitution Center, Jeffrey Rosen, thank you so much, and congratulations on the book.